Never look through your peephole if someone knocks after 9 p.m. They aren't trying to see if you'll open the door. They are waiting to see the shadow of your eye block the light, just to prove that you're home. Hey guys, welcome back. Quick thing before we get into it. These videos I record myself. Old microphone, my own voice, no AI, no text-to-speech, just me reading these stories to you, the way they were meant to be read. I think that matters. 2 stories from r/no sleep tonight. So get comfortable and don't go anywhere. I'll be right here, surviving in Minecraft. Story 1. My apartment building told us not to use our peepholes after 9 p.m. The email came in that morning, which meant I read it while standing in my kitchen in one sock, waiting for my coffee machine to stop sounding like it was choking. The subject line was, Important Resident Safety Notice. That usually meant the elevator was broken again, or someone had left chicken bones in the laundry room sink, or the landlord had discovered a new way to blame us for the mold. But this one was different. Dear residents, until further notice, please do not use your door viewer or peephole after 9 p.m. If someone knocks after this time, please call the front desk. Do not visually confirm through the peephole. Thank you. The Marwick Residences. I sent a screenshot to my friend Natalie. She replied, Girl, what kind of Scooby-Doo building do you live in? The Marwick is old in the way landlords call historic, when in reality they just want to charge more. My hallway smells like dust, carpet cleaner, and something that might have been canned soup in 1987. So honestly, the peephole thing barely made the top 5. I live alone in apartment 6C, first place after college. 1 pan, 2 mugs, couch from Facebook Marketplace. My front door faces a long beige hallway with 5 other units and a framed sailboat print that has been crooked since I moved in. Through the peephole, the hallway bends into a little fisheye world. Carpet, elevator, sailboat, the occasional neighbour holding takeout. I use the peephole constantly. Everyone does, right? You hear a knock, you look. That is what the peephole is for. At 9:42 that night, someone knocked. 3 taps, soft. It did not sound like a delivery knock, not a friendly knock, not a maintenance knock. 3 carefully spaced out taps. I was on the couch eating cereal out of a measuring cup because my bowls were dirty. I paused my show and walked to the door with the spoon still in my hand. Then I remembered the email. For a second I actually laughed. The idea of standing inside my own apartment and being afraid of a peephole felt really silly. Like being warned not to look into a mirror after midnight. Another knock. 3 taps. I said, Who is it? No answer. I leaned closer. Hello? Still nothing. My eye was maybe 2 inches from the peephole when my phone buzzed. Another email, same subject line. Important resident safety notice. This one said, Residents are reminded not to use their door viewers after 9 p.m. If you have already looked tonight, remain inside your unit and do not answer the door. I stared at it. Then from the other side of my door, someone whispered, Don't worry, you haven't looked yet. I backed up so fast I hit the little table by the door and knocked my keys to the floor. I called the front desk, voicemail. I called Natalie, no answer. The knocking started again while the phone rang. 3 taps, pause. 3 taps, pause. I called 911. My hands were shaking too much. The call connected to the front desk instead. A woman answered. Good evening, thank you for calling the Marwick Residences. Her voice sounded normal and bored. There's someone outside my door, I said. What unit? 6C. A pause. Then she said, Have you used your peephole tonight? No. Are you sure? Yes. The knocking stopped. The woman exhaled. Then don't start now, she said. What's going on? Do you live alone? I always hated that question. Why? Do you live alone? I didn't answer. There was paper shuffling on her end, like she was looking through a folder. Then she said, Please move away from your door. Who's out there? Maintenance has been notified. At night? It's almost 10. Please move away from your door. What's the maintenance code? Silence. Every work order in our building had a code. Maintenance always gave the code before entering. The woman said, Excuse me? The work order code, I said. If maintenance is coming, what's the code? Another pause. Then she hung up. That was when Natalie called me back. Before I could say anything, she said, Are you home right now? Yeah. Can you lock your bedroom door? My stomach dropped. What? Why? Is your bedroom door locked? No? Why? I need you to listen and try not to freak out. I got pictures from your number. I looked at my phone. Our text thread was open. The last thing I had sent her was the screenshot of the email that morning. What pictures? They look really old, she said, like from earlier today or yesterday. They show you in your room. I turned toward my bedroom. Its door was open. The room was dark except for the streetlight bleeding through the blinds. From my room? My voice rose at the last word. I know, she said. My phone buzzed. A picture came through. Me, standing beside my bed in an old t-shirt folding laundry. The angle was high. From the vent. The little square vent above my closet door. The one that rattled whenever the heat came on. The one I had complained about twice to management. In the picture, I was looking down at a skirt. I had no idea I was being watched. The knock came again, 3 taps. Natalie said, "Marie, don't open the door." I'm definitely not going to open the door. Don't look through the peephole either. I know. No, she said. I mean, don't. I think that's how they know. I looked at the door. The peephole was just a small, dark dot. Natalie said, "The pictures are old, but the text you're sending me are live. What do you mean?" Another image came through. My bedroom again. Me asleep. One arm under the pillow. Blanket kicked halfway off. Taken from the vent. Below the photo was a message I hadn't typed. She's home. I stopped breathing. Outside my door, a man said, "Maintenance." His voice was calm, tired, and slightly irritated. "Ma'am," he said, "we need to come in." He knocked again, 3 taps. "Ma'am, I need you to look through the peephole and confirm it's me." Natalie whispered, "Please don't open it." The man outside sighed. "Marie," he said, "you live alone. You need to let someone help you." I went cold. Marie is not on my lease. It is not on my mailbox. It is not the name I use for deliveries or bills or maintenance requests. It is not even close to my real name. It is a nickname from college. 3 people call me that, and all 3 of them know better than to say it through a locked door at night. "Marie," he repeated, "open the door." I backed away from the door. That was when I understood the warning. It was not because the peephole was specifically dangerous. It was because if you looked through it, whoever was outside could see the light change, the shadow of your eye. Whatever tiny movement told them someone was standing on the other side. They were not warning us not to open the door. They were warning us not to prove we were home. The man outside said, "We can hear you." I covered my mouth with my hand. Another man spoke from further down the hall. "Is she looking?" The first man said, "Not yet." My phone buzzed again. Another picture. Me. Sitting exactly where I was sitting, back against the kitchen cabinets, phone in one hand, knife in the other. The angle from above, from the kitchen vent. Outside, the man said, "Don't make this difficult." The doorknob turned slowly, once to the left, once to the right, then it stopped. I had locked it. Deadbolt too. The man outside said, "Good girl." Then something metal slid into the lock. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed a chair, wedging it under the knob, dragged the little table over, my laundry basket, the broken floor lamp I kept meaning to throw away. The man outside said, "Marie?" I didn't answer. "I know you're scared." I stayed quiet. "That's okay," he said. "Women get scared." My skin went cold. Then he said, "You should have just looked when we knocked." The lock clicked. Not all the way. Just enough. Natalie was crying now. "Marie, get out the window. I'm on the 6th floor. Fire escape? Other side of the building." The man outside laughed softly. Then he said through the door, "Check the closet." I am not checking the closet. I am sitting with my back against the kitchen cabinets, typing this with one hand while holding a knife in the other. The police are coming. Natalie is still on the phone. The men in the hallway have stopped knocking. A few minutes ago, something small slid under my door. A photograph, not digital, printed. I have not touched it, but I can see it from here. It is a picture of me sitting exactly where I am sitting now. Back against the cabinets, phone in one hand, knife in the other. The angle is from above, from the kitchen vent. I picked it up. On the back, written in black marker, are 6 words. "You locked him in with you." 6 words. That is all it takes. Let us not sit with that too long though, because this next one starts somewhere much quieter. A man drives to his estranged mother's house after 8 years of silence. She called asking for help. What he found inside was something that had been waiting there for a very long time, wearing her face. Story 2. My estranged mum asked me to help her move. What I found inside was deeply disturbing. I never had the best relationship with my mum growing up. When people hear that, they usually assume she must have done something horrible, but the truth is a lot more complicated than that. She is not a bad person per se, but rather a victim of circumstance who did not know how to ask for help. My father walked out on us when I was just 10 years old. I do not remember him leaving. One day he was there, then the next he was gone, without a trace. All that was left behind, according to her, was an insurmountable debt, and the uncertainty of raising a child all alone. That kind of pressure is enough to cripple anyone mentally and physically. In the years following my dad's departure, my mum found creative ways to remind me that I would amount to nothing like he did. In her drunken stupors, she would hurl insults at me and blame me for her life going down the drain. When I turned 18, I wasted no time getting out of there. For the next 8 years, we did not reconcile or speak to one another, but all of that changed when my phone lit up with her name last month. I almost declined the call. "What do you want?" I answered. "Is that how you answer the phone these days?" "For you it is." Years of pent-up bitterness poured out of me. "Lose my number. I have nothing to say to you." "Wait," she said. It sounded like she was choking up. "I'm sorry for everything, Jordan. I was such a terrible mother. You deserved better." The silence that followed was not only awkward, but deserved. How exactly was I supposed to respond to that? After I had spent an uncomfortable amount of time listening to her cry, I spoke up. "Listen, Mum, I don't want to talk about this right now. I'm busy." "When can we talk about it? Is there ever going to be a good time?" "Not really. Work keeps me pretty busy these days." "I understand," she sniffed. "Listen, kiddo, I don't have much time left. Cancer is a bitch, and it's taking its toll on me physically. I need your help with downsizing. The house is so full these days. Can you please come by? I can't reach the basement anymore. Couldn't you hire some movers?" "I could, but I want to talk to you. About everything. I'll even pay you." "How much? How does $500 sound?" $500 was $500. Money I could not turn down. "Okay, I'll help." A few days later, I was driving toward a house I swore I would never step foot in again. When I pulled into the driveway, I knew immediately that something was off. The grass on the lawn was well above knee height, and the weeds climbing the siding were nearly vines. Yellowed and frayed envelopes overflowed the mailbox. It looked like the place had been completely abandoned. I grabbed as much of the mail as I could fit into my arms and crossed the overgrown front lawn toward the front steps. The steps were an uneven, cracked mess, and I nearly busted my head when I tripped on the second-to-last stair. I rang the doorbell and began picking up the mail. Despite taking a considerable amount of time, nobody answered the door. I called her phone. The persistent ringing echoed from the depths of the house. All my calls went unanswered. Growing more concerned, I pounded on the door and called out to her repeatedly. Nothing. I ventured toward the side of the house. Unlike the front windows, the view through the side windows was not blocked by curtains, but by clutter. From where I stood on the lawn, I could see piles of various items, ranging from boxes and newspapers to decades-old furniture and garbage. My heart broke at the sight. "Jesus, Mum, what happened to you?" I muttered, hopping over the rusted chain-link fence into her backyard. The back door was cracked open a couple of inches wide. I approached it and was greeted by a horrendous smell that invaded my nostrils. I audibly gagged and pulled my shirt over my nose. It took a number of attempts to shove the mountain of junk obstructing my path, but eventually it all toppled onto the floor. I squeezed my way through. The way my feet squelched beneath me made it feel like I was stepping through a field of rotted pumpkins. Even with my shirt as a makeshift mask, the smell was overwhelming. Years of accumulating mold and spoiled food had transformed my childhood home into something more akin to a landfill than a house. "Mum?" My voice travelled through the house, but there was still no indication that anybody was home. The more I wandered through the house, the more bewildered I became. In the living room, where my mum had, on numerous occasions, screamed at me for ruining her life, pillars of miscellaneous magazines and newspapers extended to the ceiling like towers, broken glass from no longer operable lamps scattered across the floor. What made me most nauseous though was not the narrow pathways from all the junk, or even the couple pounds of hamburger meat infested with flies in the kitchen sink. It was the spider webs. They were everywhere. I hate spiders. Ever since I was a child, they terrified me. So when I saw the webs go from tiny membranous piles in corners to thick tapestries draped across entire pieces of furniture, I nearly left right then and there. But I could not leave my mum alone to fend for herself in this dump. "Hey Mum, I'm here!" My cracking voice was accompanied by the sound of something skittering on the ceiling. My attention drew upward, and I saw spiders crawling slowly amidst the cracks and exposed beams. Trembling, I moved toward the stairway. Ascending the stairs was incredibly difficult. Slippery plastic bags and random cardboard boxes adorning nearly every individual step made it feel like an obstacle course. I made it to the top. To the left of me was the door to my mum's room. I grabbed the doorknob and turned it slowly. I pushed the door open, its hinges creaking as it revealed a sight I was not expecting. The room was clean. Not spotless, but significantly cleaner than everywhere else, and on the other side of the room, sitting in a recliner, was my mum. Buried beneath layers of dust, her figure sitting idly in a reclining chair by the window. I approached her slowly. "Mum?" She did not respond. I touched her shoulder gently. Her body was stiff and cold beneath my fingers. I pulled my hand back immediately. I did not need to check for a pulse to know she was gone. By the looks of it, she had been gone for a very long time. I stumbled backward and sat down heavily on the edge of her bed. The room was completely silent except for the sound of my own ragged breathing. Then from somewhere downstairs, a voice called out, "Jordan, where are you?" It was my mum's voice. I felt a chill creep up my spine. My eyes darted from my mum's body to the doorway. There was no way that the woman whose deceased body I had just seen with my own eyes had called out to me, "Honey, I can't find you. The house is so full these days." I did not answer. I held my breath as I heard noises coming from somewhere downstairs. Inching my way toward the door, I peered around, but did not see anyone. "Jordan, answer me right this instant." The voice had grown irritated. It was the voice I had been accustomed to associating with my mum for years. Hearing it again filled me with a dread I had not felt since childhood. "Don't make me come up there." This time the voice became more guttural. I covered my mouth to prevent myself from responding. The sound of shifting clutter and scampering up the stairs filled the house. I retreated to the bedroom, but the floor creaked beneath me, giving me away. "Jordan, I know where you are." With a nightmarish rhythm, its abdomen swayed as it stalked forward up the stairs. "It's been so long since I've seen my boy." Paralyzed, I could only stare at the clusters of beady, animalistic eyes that reflected back at me. Beneath them was a face I recognized all too well. It was my mum. Her cheeks sagged and stretched around fangs that clicked together and glistened with saliva. Jointed legs sprawled from beneath, twitching at the slightest disturbance of the chitinous shell that trailed behind it. "Come give me a kiss." The thing proclaiming to be my mum clacked its fangs and advanced toward me with patience. I recoiled and shook my head, refusing to give in to this thing's wishes. "Go to hell," I declared, rushing toward the staircase railing and vaulting over it. The cardboard boxes beneath broke my landing as a wailing, chittering shriek reverberated from above. With an unsettling fluidity, the monstrous silhouette descended the stairs. I barreled through the garbage, frantically scrambling back the way I had come. "You get back here right now, Jordan." I did not look back. I kept pushing forward through all the junk. The house became more suffocating with every step I took. "Jordan!" My heart thudded against my ribcage as I burst into the kitchen and felt my feet become immediately stuck. The surrounding area was engulfed in overlapping layers of webs. Wall to wall, cabinet to cabinet, even the floor. The room had become a trap. I jerked and wiggled, but my movements were no use. Elastic and silky webbing clung to my hands like glue. The more I struggled, the more adhesive it became. Above me, I heard it scamper before dropping into view from the ceiling. With a thud, it flexed its legs and carried itself toward me. My mom's face had been consumed entirely by ravenous intent. Got you. The webs around me vibrated with every restricted movement I made. I kicked to keep it at bay, but a second later, it lunged. I backed my head away as its fangs snapped inches from my face. The impact sent me to the floor, and I felt my body sink deeper into the lattice of webbing behind me. The creature adjusted its position and stared down at me with longing and hunger. "Jordan, Mum has missed you so much," the voice rumbled through the silk. The fangs lowered themselves toward me with an eager precision, but before they could connect, I used what remaining strength I had to pull my hands up and free them. I kicked and pushed the creature off me. My newfound freedom allowed me to grab a nearby piece of glass from the floor. Turning to face it once more, I stabbed it into the closest eye. With a horrific shriek of pain, it darted toward the wall and retreated up along it. "Jordan, how dare you treat your mother this way, you unappreciative brat!" I did not look back. I threw myself into the gap of the back door, shoulder first, and powered my way through. Sunlight peeked through the other side like a beacon, but before I could reach it, something gripped my shoe. I turned to see my mum holding on tightly with her fangs, desperate to drag me back into the house. "Let go," I pleaded as I kicked repeatedly. A resounding crack filled the air as my foot connected with a fang. "Get back here!" I stumbled out onto the back steps and ran faster than I ever have in my entire life. I scaled the fence, bolted toward my car, and floored it out of the neighborhood. I never went back. When the adrenaline wore off, I pulled into a grocery store parking lot and called 911. The police were hesitant, but eventually relented. They found my mum's body in the webs, but they never found the monster wearing my mum's face. People talk about her now like she was nothing more than a hoarder, but I do not think about the house when I think of her. I just think of my mum. And that is 2 for tonight. A woman who was warned not to look through her peephole and found out exactly why too late, and a man who went back to a house full of old grief and found something that had been there for years, waiting for him to come home. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one. Story 3. Something keeps trying to get invited into my house. Don't ever knock on my front door, don't even try it. If you're a salesman, keep stepping. If you're a Girl Scout, move on to the next house. We don't care if you see us through the window or hear us behind the door. We will never open it. We don't know who we can trust anymore. All we know is that whatever is outside can't enter unless we let it. It all started about a week ago, when I was home alone. My wife and 2 boys were spending the week at her mother's place, while I begrudgingly stayed behind so my boss wouldn't think of my name when our company's downsizing inevitably reached our branch. 5 o'clock came and put an end to Monday, and I didn't linger around the office for a second. On my way home, I stopped by my favourite Chinese takeout, pulled my car into the garage, changed into sweatpants, slipped on my slippers, and settled into my favourite recliner. As I flipped on the TV and opened my takeout, I sighed away the day's stress and prepared to relax. It had barely been 15 minutes before my peace was interrupted by the loud sound of the doorbell. "Great," I muttered, "just great." When I opened the door, I was met by one of the strangest sights I had ever seen. Before me, on the threshold of my home, was a salesman. Not a salesman you might see wandering around modern neighborhoods, dressed in bright polos trying to sell you solar panels. No. This salesman looked like he had stepped out of the 1960s. A perfectly polished black dress shoes, a light grey 3-piece tweed suit, a matching grey fedora, tall and thin, his brown hair skillfully cut and styled, his face cleanly shaved, his teeth perfectly straight and dazzlingly white. In one hand he held a brown leather briefcase, and at his side was a very old vacuum cleaner. As our eyes met, he smiled, removed his fedora, and in the quick yet soothing voice of an old-fashioned baseball announcer, he said, "Good evening, sir. Always a pleasure to see a fellow citizen. I'm here on behalf of the Hoover Company. If I could, I'd like to come inside and take a moment to demonstrate to you the marvels of the modern home vacuum." I couldn't help but chuckle a little. "That's some get-up," I said. "May I come in?" He didn't drop the act. "No, sir, nothing special, just the regular Hoover treatment." "May I come in?" I squinted slightly. No. At this, his smile dropped. He stared blankly for a moment before saying, "You won't let me in?" "No," I said again. "Why not?" he asked in a quieter voice. "Look, man, this is my house, and I don't need a reason to not let you in." He stared blankly at me again before whispering, "Please?" "No, now get lost." With that, I slammed the door in his face and backed up into the entryway. But through the fog glass of the front door, I could still see his silhouette just standing there on the porch. I held my breath and stared, hoping he would leave. After about 3 minutes he hadn't moved, and I lost my temper. I swung the door open and yelled into his wide smile, "Get off my porch right now, or I'm calling the cops." He stared. His smile only seemed to widen. After half a minute he walked backwards off the porch, his eyes never leaving mine, his smile never lowering, until he reached the sidewalk. Then he turned and walked off. I locked the front door, finished my dinner, headed off to bed. At 1 a.m, the silence of the house was shattered by the doorbell. Barely awake, I stumbled out of bed and into the hallway. As I approached the front door, a bright light sent a long shadow of a man into my house. The figure before me spoke in a loud, authoritative voice. "Sir, I'm with the police. We received a complaint from this address earlier today. May I come in and discuss the details?" My mind was barely keeping up. "Wait, what are you talking about?" "Just following up on the call we received. May I come in and take your statement?" "I never called the police today. I know for a fact that no one else here did either." The figure was silent for a moment. "All the same, sir, if I could come in, we could clear this all up." It was at this point that I noticed the man's uniform. It was old, the type of uniform worn back in the 80s. Worn dark aviator sunglasses, a thick handlebar mustache, something out of a police TV show. "What's your badge number?" He didn't reply. "Do you have a warrant?" "No," came the simple answer. "Then you can't come in." "If I had one, would you let me in?" I didn't answer, just slammed and locked the door. The man banged his fist on the door for about 15 minutes before giving up and leaving. After calming down for about an hour, I finally fell back asleep. When morning came, I found it easy to convince myself that last night's interaction was nothing but an odd dream. I blamed it on the cheap Chinese food. Work was nothing special. 5 o'clock came and I didn't linger. It was 6:30 by the time I pulled into my quiet neighborhood, and as I reached my house, I noticed a figure standing on the front porch. A man dressed in a light grey jumpsuit, similar to the ones a janitor or plumber might wear. He stood facing the door, one hand raised, limply yet constantly knocking. "No way," I said in disbelief, as I passed the front of the house to the garage on the side. As I passed, the man noticed. His head slowly turned to me and followed me as I disappeared around the corner. "Not again," I muttered aloud. By the time I parked and exited the car, he was already there, standing just outside the open garage door, as if an invisible wall stopped him from coming any closer. "Hello," he said in a cheerful voice. "We received a call earlier about a busted pipe and no one has answered the door. May I come in and take a look?" I stared at him as he spoke, and not once did I see him blink. A wide smile crossed his face as he finished, as if it was his default expression. "No, no one called you. No one has even been here all day. So get out of here!" The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, and through the gritted teeth of his smile he said, "So you're here alone?" I swallowed. "That's none of your business. Now leave." As if a switch was flipped, he returned to the expression and movements of a charismatic tradesman. "Really, sir, I must insist. Just let me come in and take a look. Dealing with a flooded basement isn't a relaxing way to spend the evening. No, I must insist that you leave right now and don't ever come back." His unblinking eyes narrowed. The unreal smile returned as he backed away. As he reached the end of my driveway, I heard him quietly say, "See you later." I had hoped to grill that night for dinner. I decided to leave the grill in the garage, pull out one of the cars, and leave the garage open to let the smoke out. The smell of the cooking meat mixed with the cool, earthy smell of the rain calmed my nerves. Just as the steaks finished cooking, the storm outside became noticeably stronger. I noticed a figure running in the heavy rain. It took a second to realize they were running right toward my garage. It appeared to be a young girl, no older than 12 years old. She ran as fast as she could, but when she reached the threshold of the garage, she stopped instantly. I glared cautiously at her. Even in the rain, it was obvious that she was crying. For a moment, I let my guard down. This was just a little girl who needed help. I moved closer to the entry of the garage. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" Through sobs and snuffles, she replied weakly, "They're chasing me. They want to hurt me. Please help me." I took another step closer. "Who's chasing you? How can I help?" At that question, a thin grin broke across the girl's face, and she said, "Can I come inside? I don't think they'll find me if I'm in there." Something in the back of my mind broke through my fatherly concern. Something wasn't right. I stared intently at the little girl's face. Her unblinking eyes gazed back. A chill ran down my back as I realized that I recognized this girl. Everyone in this area knew who she was. This was the Johnson girl. Last summer, she was snatched while riding her bike to a friend's house. The whole community searched for weeks. Her devastated parents regularly pleaded with her kidnapper on the local news. For months, there was no sign of her. At the end of September, her body was found, floating face down in a nearby reservoir. The thing in front of me wore the same clothes the Johnson girl was wearing when her body was found. A white, long-sleeved shirt, dark blue jeans with mud stains around the knees. The smile on its face widened as we stared into each other's eyes. The fingers of its left hand twitched violently. My throat was dry as I squeaked out one question. What are you? At this, the thing violently tilted its head to the side, before cheerfully replying through clenched teeth. I'm a little girl. Instantly, her face dropped the smile, as the facade of a distressed, crying girl returned. And I really need to hide in your house. Please, mister, they'll get me. Cold sweat ran down my forehead as I slowly shook my head no. Go away, I stuttered. At this, a low growl escaped the little girl's lips as malice filled her eyes. For one terrible second, neither of us moved. Then, in a flash, she lurched toward me. But as she tried to break the plane of the doorway, she froze, as if she hit an unseen wall. She screamed, "Let me in!" over and over again. She swung her fists forward, as if banging on an invisible door. I didn't even bother to take the steak off the grill as I turned, hit the garage door button and ran into the house. That night was awful. Whatever was outside my house didn't leave. Instead, it spent the night screaming and banging on every door and every window. The scream was terrible, angry and primal. With every bang, I feared the windows would shatter or the doors would give out, but they didn't. They creaked and shifted, but they held. Every now and then, I'd see its shadow under the lights of a passing car. Sometimes it was the shadow of a little girl. Sometimes it was the shadow of a fedora-wearing salesman or a police officer. But no matter the shadow, the screams remained the same. Raspy, inhuman screams I'd first heard in the garage. I spent the night huddled in the upstairs bathroom as its violent fit shook the foundation of the house. Morning came, and exactly 30 minutes after sunrise, the banging and screaming stopped. The next few days were a nightmare. Every evening around 7 p.m, a figure would stand on the porch and knock on the door. Hello? Anyone in there? May I come in, please? Sometimes it asked in the voice of a little girl. Sometimes it pretended to be the police. Sometimes it spoke in the smooth voice of a salesman. It had some new voices too. An elderly woman, a teenage boy. Sometimes it tried accents, but it always got them wrong. One time it started in a Russian accent and finished in a heavy Hispanic accent. Its British accent was strangely mixed with a deep Southern accent, but it kept trying. With every passing hour, it grew more angry and more violent. The calm tone slowly grew angry and eventually would scream. The knocking would turn to banging, but every morning, 30 minutes after sunrise, it would all stop. I hadn't slept in days and I was terrified to go outside. My wife and sons were flying home. I knew I couldn't ask my wife to get an Uber. I would never be able to trust that they were real unless I saw them exiting the plane myself. So, with shaking hands, I opened the garage and headed off toward the airport. It was so good to see my wife and boys. After several sleepless nights and days of isolation, just their presence was a breath of fresh air. I pulled my wife in for a hug. "Dear, you look terrible," she said, full of concern. "I'll explain later. It's just really good to see you." On the car ride home, I tried to explain the situation. I told them that for the last couple of days, strange people had been trying to get into our house. I'm sure I sounded crazy as I tried to tell them about vacuum salesmen from the 60s or little dead girls. When I told them about the banging and screaming in the night and suggested that maybe we spend a few nights in a hotel, my wife gently laid her hand on my arm. "Are you feeling okay, honey?" My youngest son jokingly said, "Have you been smoking weed, Dad?" I didn't know what to say. After all, they would see what I was talking about at 7. The afternoon moved by slowly. 7 p.m. came, but to my surprise, no strange visitors came with it. Nothing. No knocking, no voices from the other side of the door. At 8:30, I let out a cautious sigh of relief. Maybe it was gone. Maybe the events of this week were just some sort of elaborate prank. I paced around the house till nearly 10, when my wife asked if I was coming to bed. Before long, I couldn't keep my weary eyes open any longer, and I drifted off to sleep. In the morning, I felt refreshed. I hadn't slept in days, and that night I slept all the way through with no interruptions. I smiled and stretched, thinking to myself, I'm so glad that's over. I made my way to the kitchen, where I made myself a cup of coffee and some toast. A few minutes later, my oldest son came down the stairs and into the kitchen. He looked at me with a big grin on his face. I nodded and said, "Morning." He went to the cupboard to grab a bowl for cereal. As he did, with his back toward me, he said, "Hey Dad, why did you need me to let you in last night?" And that is 2 for tonight. A town with rules about something that has been learning to imitate people for thousands of years. And a man who spent a week keeping his door shut, only to find out it found another way in. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.